We live with my in-laws and I am tired. I found a house nearby and told my husband to move out with me, but he is shocked and hurt. To put into context, we have been married for almost 5 years, one daughter. When COVID started, his parents moved in with us. I let them stay in the main bedroom and we used to sleep in a blow-up mattress in the living room. Then we have decided to move to a bigger house for a short period of time until COVID was over. Well, after 6 months of living together, I found a house to live separately, but they decided to move in with us last minute. Things were okay with in-laws until my mill started interfering more and more. 24/7 people in the house visiting her, mostly male relatives, and they would stay until 2 a.m. My husband doesn't get home from work until late at night, so he is never at home except to come to sleep. I have been telling him to look for houses for them. He rented them a 1-bedroom flat, and after 4 months my in-laws decided to pack their stuff and come back to the house. I was at my wit ends, and my husband kept promising that as soon as we buy a house or his brother comes from his home country, they will move with him. His cousin came to live with us, apparently for 2 weeks. He stayed 6 months in my daughter's room and she was sleeping with us. No privacy whatsoever. This February his brother came, but he got married, so now they were waiting for his wife to come as well. My husband promised me that by September he will find a place for them to live. He didn't. Sister-in-law came to live in the house. They stayed for a couple of weeks and moved out on their own. Housing in London is really hard to find, therefore I was in a waiting list for 2 years for a house, and I got the confirmation yesterday. I sat down with my husband and explained that I found a house, that I have signed the tenancy agreement, and to move the 3 of us there. He said no, it is too far, 15 minutes from where we live. He then said he doesn't understand what has happened, why I am doing this to him, and he was in a complete shock. I don't pay rent or contribute much for where we are living now, but I promised him that I will pay for the new house rent and he can carry on supporting his parents without an extra burden. Mind you, he pays the rent for his brother as well. He went mad because he said I made his brother and wife move out when they could stay in the house, and he immediately arranged for them to move back in the house. I have spoken again to him, and for the first time I saw him crying. It broke my heart, but my mental health is at risk and I can't live in this house any longer. He said he can't abandon his parents, although they will be living with his brother, and he fears that we will end up divorced because he doesn't want to move out. We love each other, and now my husband is really struggling with his emotions. I informed him that I will be packing his stuff as well. I will paint, redecorate and make a home for him, and hopefully he will move in with me and little one. I am scared about this decision as I really don't want to lose him, but I can't stay in a house where I am woken up constantly by loud voices until 2/3 am, where I can't invite my relatives anymore as there are always people in there and I have no privacy. I am so distressed and I don't know what else to do because I know he needs to convince himself. What can I do? Comment. This is a just no so situation. The problem isn't the in-laws, it's a husband issue. He's prioritizing everyone in his life instead of you and your daughter. Keep your plan to move. If he joins you, you'd better make sure he understands his family can never move in. I wouldn't even let them stay overnight. He needs therapy. Boy, I couldn't have said that any better. Your husband is emotionally enmeshed with his family. He definitely needs therapy. I am assuming this is a cultural thing that he was raised that the eldest son takes care of his parents. I understand your frustration and lack of privacy with people coming and staying all hours night and day. This is not the way you want to live. But, do let him know if he comes his parents are not allowed to stay at your house. Never. I'm going to sound pretty harsh here, so apologies in advance. Your marriage is already over. Your husband has a list of priorities, and you and your child are at the very bottom. His parents and his siblings, their financial and mental well-being, are more important to him than you'll ever be. Do you really love him, or do you just love the idea of him that you had envisioned in the beginning? This is an important question to ask yourself. Because you deserve so much more than what you're getting. And the reality is that things are never going to change. If you let him move with you, it is just a matter of time before you're right back in this situation again. Please do not pack his things and move them with you. If, and this is a big if he wants to save your marriage and live with just you and your daughter, he needs to make the effort. That means taking the initiative to pack up and move his own things. Frankly, you are making this too easy for him. He needs to feel uncomfortable in order to ever open his eyes to reality. And you, my dear, need to love yourself enough to know that any man worth your living space and heart will make more of an effort than lip service. This is what I came here to stay. Rest assured, his family will be moving in with you if he does. Because they come first in his life and he can't bear to live without them. It's time for you and your daughter to make a life of your own. This man does not love you and he never will. There is simply no room in his heart for you because it is already filled with his family. Move without him. Don't let him simply move your problems into a new place, which is exactly what he will do given the chance. Mind me asking where they're from? Is he the oldest child and culturally he feels responsible for the entire family? I second the options you give him. You move out, he can join if he wants to, starting with counseling, or file for divorce and you both move on with your romantic lives. Assuming you'd have shared custody of the child so he won't be out of your life completely, but I hope it teaches him to respect you. So now you know that all the times your husband told you the situation was temporary, he was lying. But he underestimated you and didn't expect you to actually take control over your own life. Stand your ground. He hasn't ever prioritized you and your daughter. You should be proud of yourself for finally doing it. You can move out with your child. I can already tell you he's going to stay right where he is because he doesn't see what's wrong with the living situation. He is prioritizing his family over you and your child. Deep down, you know this. Go live in your own place and make a happy and joyful home for your child, because where you are just isn't it. If you are so inclined, give him a 2-card solution: marriage counseling so he can extradite himself from his enmeshed family, or a divorce attorney. Without counseling, nothing will change, as you already know. You don't want to look back 20 years from now and realize you wasted your life unhappy, not to mention what that will do to your child. Next story 2. Mill doesn't care about safety precautions for my infant. A few weeks ago my husband, 10-month-old daughter, and myself went to my in-laws for dinner. Mill has set up my daughter's high chair at the table. It's one of those high chairs that sits on top of a regular chair and is strapped on from underneath. The table that she eats off of is what keeps her in the chair. When it was time to sit down, I checked with Mill and asked if the high chair was good to put the baby in and she said yes. I put my daughter into the high chair and sat down next to her. My husband was taking a shower, so he wasn't at the dinner table yet. Everyone else sat down and we all ate dinner together. Towards the end of the meal, most people had gotten up and were cleaning off their plates. Myself and my sister-in-law were still at the table, chatting. My daughter was also still sat next to me in the high chair. As I'm talking with my sister-in-law, I heard a loud crash. I turn over to my daughter and her high chair is falling off of the chair that it's supposed to be strapped onto. The high chair smashes against the table. As I see it fall, my first instinct was to try to stop her from falling onto the ground, so I stick my leg out to catch her. Unfortunately, it didn't work and she just ended up smashing her nose into my knee. The chair then proceeds to fall onto the ground, making a huge crashing sound, and my daughter, who is still in the chair, hits overhead on the ground. My daughter started screaming. My husband at this point was in the kitchen and also witnessed the whole thing. I quickly grab her out of the high chair and start consoling her. My husband realizes that the high chair wasn't strapped onto the chair whatsoever. He immediately confronts his mom and asks her why it wasn't strapped, and she couldn't give him an answer. She just said, "I don't know, I'm sorry." Took a few minutes to calm my daughter down. I checked her out and she was completely fine. Did have a little scrap on her nose, but was mostly okay. She seems quite traumatized. My Mill threw out the high chair, but I didn't understand why, because it was her negligence, not the high chair fault, that my daughter fell. The first thing my Mill said to me when my daughter fell was that I was never going to trust her with my baby ever again, and she's right about that. Later on, my husband had to go to work, so Mill had arranged to drive myself and my daughter home. When I go to put my baby in the car seat, it's not even strapped in right. It's one of the car seats that has to have a base with it, but she just has it buckled in with the regular seat belt and no base. The car seat wasn't even in tightly. Like, I could wiggle it around very easily. At this point, I'm completely fed up and I just want to go home and get away from Mill. So, I put my daughter in the car seat and hope that everything will be okay. On the car ride to my house, Mill is talking about the incident that happened earlier. How she just started to get complacent with the safety precautions. I could hardly speak to her because I was so mad. She admitted to purposely not strapping my daughter in because she just didn't care about the safety precautions. I have had my suspicions about her being neglectful. I had seen her watch my niece and she was very neglectful when it came to watching her completely. There had been a few times that if I wasn't there, my niece would have been very hurt. I don't feel comfortable leaving my daughter with her anymore. She obviously doesn't seem to think that my child's safety is a concern for her. She is our only option for childcare because my mother is a different nightmare as well. Not sure what I should do. I would like to have a conversation with her about being more careful, but not sure how to do it. Comment. I'm sorry. But the bigger issue is that you know that she is neglectful and purposefully so. With your niece. Then you see the car seat. But you are concerned about having to use her for childcare. I would find another alternative no matter what. Or you are just responsible. You must find another option for childcare. You can't allow her to endanger your child's life. Can you even imagine losing your daughter to a preventable accident? I don't know what the answer is. Quit work. Work opposite shifts as your husband. Find a work-from-home job. This woman has told you that she is complacent about safety. Believe her. Are you really willing to place your daughter's well-being in her hands? Are you going to hope she does better even if you have a talk with her? I believe the cost is too high to give her another chance. Next time you might not be so lucky that it's just a scratch on the nose. Can you really afford to chance it? I think your daughter's life is more important. Get another sitter, nanny, or daycare. Don't give her the second opportunity to permanently harm your child. I mean this in the nicest way possible, but if you were there, it's usually the parent's responsibility to check on this. I learned this lesson the hard way too. I've found that grandparents can sometimes be out of touch with things like high chairs and car seats. They're made differently than when their own babies were little and they don't always know how to properly use them. I'd definitely address and maybe go over bucking baby in with her. Trust your gut, it knows things before your head does. She is neglectful, and by what she's said, she doesn't care. Don't ever leave Lo alone with Mill. She is not your only option for daycare, she's just the easiest option. Join a mommy's group. Find other kids around your daughter's age and see if sharing a nanny would work. A friend's son did this and it worked out great, even an in-home daycare. This time it was a high chair, and an improperly set car seat. Why wasn't it properly secured before you put Lo in it? There will be a next time, and it will never be her fault. Find alternative care for Lo, and tell Mill why, because you are too lax with safety and we are concerned about it. You do what is necessary so you don't end up at your own child's funeral. Do not let this woman watch your child when she has admitted she does not think safety precautions are necessary. Stay home if you have to, but do not let this woman watch your child unsupervised. You should have had this figured out before you had your daughter. Especially when you had seen her be negligent to your niece. You are just as much at fault here because of that little snippet. You knew she was negligent and still allowed her to watch your child. Don't be one of those moms on here that post about how they left their child in the care of someone negligent, and their child ended up dying. I do not want to be harsh with you, but the way you are talking sounds like you are going to allow this woman to watch your child again, and if that is the case then you are being just as negligent if not more by putting your child into the hands of someone who does not care about your child's safety.